Up next will be Republican Christopher Peters. He's running in the 2nd Congressional District. Dave Loebsack is the Democrat in that race. And there's also a Libertarian. Both of them have spoken on the soapbox stage. And you can find stories, photos, videos, and all that at DesMoinesRegister.com/soapbox. And now, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. I don't know where to set this. So Rachel said that we bring the politicians up here to make them sweat, so I think that's only fair. Before I get going with any prepared remarks, I just want to acknowledge somebody very special in the audience. She's going to hate me for this, but is our super volunteer on the campaign, a wonderful mother, my beloved wife. It's her birthday today, Julie Peters. Everybody clap, please, for Julie. So it's really special when your wife is willing to come out to the Iowa State Fair for your birthday. And I won't say how old she is, just as she's much younger and much more attractive, right? So a little bit about me, just in brief. I'm a surgeon. I've been a physician now for 29 years. I spent my first 9 years in the Army, Medical Corps as a general surgeon, and then the last 20 years or so in private practice. Attention on the ground. Attention on the ground. The loudspeaker's talking. Should I repeat that message? Anyway, my reason for running is really the same reason that I became a physician. I think there's things that can... Carly and family meet at the public safety building. Is the same reason I became a physician is I wanted to help people. And I think there are things that we can do and are not doing in government. And that includes first evaluating a problem, diagnosing it correctly, evaluating potential solutions, and implementing them when appropriate. That's my motivation to run. Some of the issues that maybe first start thinking about running, I'll come to in a little bit. But again, a little bit more about me. Grew up in Kansas, attended college, University of Kansas, went to medical school on an Army scholarship, served my 9 years in the Army. Met Julie during my last year of residency. We've been married just over 24 years. We have 3 sons. We've moved back to Iowa in 2004, where we raised our sons. 2 are now in college, 1 still in high school. It's been a great place to grow up for them. When we took a year off to travel, most of a year off to travel a few years back, and when we got done, I asked the boys, where do you want to live now? I said, gave them a lot of options, and they said, we want to go back to Iowa. And so I think that's a great testament to a great state. Another great testament to a great state, again, is my wife. Julie grew up on a farm in northern Iowa, Kossuth County, the daughter of a farmer and a nurse. And I'd like to joke that I had to go all the way to Hawaii, where I was doing my residency. Boy from Kansas had to go to Hawaii to meet a girl from Iowa. So it was a great match, and it's been wonderful to be in Iowa. I also have generational roots in Iowa, going back to the late 1800s. My ancestors settled in West Side, Iowa, which is about 2 hours north and west of here, and the first 3 generations of Peters lived in that area until more recently when my dad and I mostly were in Kansas, but now I'm in Iowa again. There are a few issues, as I mentioned, that really got me interested in politics. I'd been growing up in a Republican household, but hadn't been really active in politics other than voting periodically. But then a few things really kind of got my attention. Number one was the financial crisis. Subprime housing crisis led to the financial crisis. And I wanted to know, how does that happen? So I really kind of started to try to understand why that happened. There's a lot of reasons, but some of it goes back to bad policy decisions done by government decades earlier. Then Congress decided to bail out the financial sector. And I thought, well, wait a second, I own a private surgical clinic. If I got in trouble financially, no one's going to bail me out. I found that deeply unfair. And then I looked at a few other issues. They turned to Dodd-Frank banking reform bill, which was designed to help hopefully prevent a crisis again in the future, but harmed community banks. Recently, they passed a law to roll back some of those adverse regulations on community banks, but my opponent failed to support it. And then lastly, they turned their attention to my industry, which is healthcare. When I first looked at it, I thought, well, what's wrong with my industry? At that point, I've been a doctor for over 20 years, and I thought, it seems to be working okay, and my patients seem to be getting the care I need. I'm happy with what I'm doing. But then I looked a little deeper, I realized that it is a really bad system we have. Unfortunately, what the Democratic Congress passed, what we know as the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, made the situation worse. And then I turned to look at who my representatives were in Congress, and I noticed that the one representing me in Southeast Iowa was Dave Loebsack. And he voted exactly opposite of how I would have voted on every single one of those issues. You know, he voted for the bailout of the financial sector. He voted for Dodd-Frank, voted for the Affordable Care Act, voted against reducing regulatory burden on our community banks. And I thought, you know, somebody could do better than that guy. And I thought, well, maybe that guy should be me. So I decided to run in 16. We got started late because somebody else was going to run and then dropped out at the last minute. So we had about 7 months to run a campaign, which really wasn't enough time, but we still managed over 46% of the vote. I found that an encouraging result and thought, after taking a little break from campaigning, maybe we should try again. So we started last July. We announced our campaign, and we've been to all 24 counties in the district. I couldn't even count how many times, multiple times, multiple events, far more than we've ever done before. And what we're hearing on the ground is very encouraging. Most people are deeply concerned about the same issues that I'm concerned about. Number one issue by far is still healthcare costs. It affects individual families, it affects businesses, it affects everybody. And neither Democrats or Republicans in Congress are really speaking meaningfully about that issue. Republicans, for the most part, have just said, let's repeal the Affordable Care Act or what remains of it. And Democrats, for the most part, are either saying, let's preserve what Affordable Care Act we have, or let's go to a Medicare for All plan. In my opinion, the Republican ideas don't go far enough, and the Democratic ideas go too far. I think there are solutions there, and I've been talking throughout the district and even outside the district for the last 12 months on healthcare reform. Generally, I'm getting really good buy-in on my plan. I'm not going to go into detail on that here, but basically I'll just say that it's more focused on giving to the patient, giving more power to the patient, restoring that personal relationship between patients and their physicians, and removing as much as we can the influence of insurance companies and government on our health care. And I think that's a solution for it, and people seem to like that a lot. Other issues I hear a lot about on the campaign trail, you hear about a lot on the news. Those include things like labor, immigration, security. Those are all issues, again, I think we can address. Immigration is something we have not addressed meaningfully as a congressional body for forever. I think we can get there. There have been some good proposals out there. Congress just needs to step up its act and actually get it done for a change. And labor, generally, for employers, they're looking for everything from higher skilled workers, potentially immigrants that come from other countries. So I think expanding that legal immigration so we get more people here to fill jobs we need is a good thing. And even for people who are looking for lower skilled seasonal migrant workers is important as well. So there's a lot of issues I think we can address, but Congress has just failed to do so. Which gets to the bigger issue here, and this is kind of a more high-level issue. Congress has not worked, in my opinion, for decades. It has been over 20 years since Congress has passed a proper budget on time, over 20 years, in fact, September 1997. So I don't think it's any coincidence that since that time, our federal debt has grown from $5 trillion to $21 trillion. I mentioned earlier that Julie and I have a clinic, and if we don't keep track of our budget, potentially we'd go in debt as well. I think we should hold our government to the same standards. They ought to be able to at least, let's start by reducing that debt by balancing a budget 1 year. And then let's balance the budget the next year. And let's make some small incremental changes. I don't hold out a lot of hope that Congress is going to make any drastic change. I would love to see it. But let's at least start by behaving a little more fiscally responsible than Congress has been. So, and basically, the status quo has failed us. What we've been doing, politics as usual, is kind of continue to kick the can down the road on any number of issues. Rising debt, Social Security is going to lose all remaining trust funds in just 16 years. Congress has known that has been coming for decades and have done nothing. Congress is not brave. Most of our elected officials are followers rather than leaders. We as a nation need to come together and tell them where we want them to go rather than expecting them to lead. Most elected officials are more concerned about the next election cycle than they are the next generation. But in order for us to lead our country, and we are supposed to be a self-governing people, we have to be able to talk to one another again. And that seems to be an increasingly hard thing to do. Little side note, all people on the left are not snowflakes, not everybody on the right is deplorable. There's a lot of middle ground and opinions there. Most people, when you talk to them and you take the time to listen to them, you can find areas of agreement. And you don't have to agree on every issue. I'm not looking for some soggy compromise in the middle. I want everybody to bring their ideas forward, let them compete in the marketplace of ideas. Let's have that conversation. We shouldn't shy away from that, but we need to go away from fighting, verbally fighting with one another, to arguing and having discussions, and it should be something we do. That's that's a major underpinning of a country like ours, a republic which is supposed to be self-governing. Our country was founded, in my opinion, on 3 principles. And these are really best expressed in our Declaration of Independence. Those are equality, liberty, and self-government. And equality does not mean that we are all born equal or we need to be made equal. We are all going to have special skills. But what it means is our founders rejected the idea that you had hereditary monarchy, hereditary aristocracy. No one person is inherently better than another person by the status of their birth. So we're all equal. We all have equal rights to freedom to pursue our own happiness. And we founded a government, a new country with a unique form of government, with the primary goal of protecting those rights. That's our main job of government. And we've strayed far beyond that. We're doing a lot more. There was no constitutional mandate for health care or Social Security or anything of those other things we're doing. That's fine to do those, but to the degree that we're not living up to that fundamental responsibility of protecting our rights to live our lives the way we want, pursue our own happiness, then government is failing. And I think it is failing. Politics as usual has failed us. My opponent is a nice guy, but he's part of the status quo. I think we can do better than Dave Loebsack in the 2nd District, and that's why I'm running to defeat him. So thank you for thank you for my time. I don't know where I lasted on time, but thank you. And I'll be around to answer any questions going forward. Thanks.